While the beginning of every new season of Buffy deals with the repercussions of the previous one, Season 5 is unique in that many of its themes and character plot points were introduced in Restless. Due to the confusion and dissatisfaction of Season 4, Whedon made the decision to ground Season 5, centering it around the characters and their relationships with each other. Because of this, Buffy vs. Dracula can be viewed as a continuation of Restless, with both episodes establishing Season 5's themes of family and the duality of self. While all the characters represent duality in one form or another, the focus of this season is the tension between Buffy's humanity and her Slayer nature. At the beginning of the series, the divide between Buffy's two lives was more apparent, with one constantly impacting the other. Yet as Buffy has continued to internally integrate her two halves, so too has the show blurred the lines in her day-to-day life.
Good, honey, kill him!
In the past, her hesitation to embrace being the Slayer has been because of her fear of its interference with her normal life. In Season 1, we talked about how the Master's name reflects Buffy's fears, and his enthrallment shows her being mastered by that fear to the point where she can't move. When she kills him, she takes charge of her destiny and her life, showing that she will no longer be mastered by outside influences.
Save the hypnosis crap for the tourists.
Season 2 introduces Kendra, and with her came the revelation that being the Slayer is just as much a part of Buffy as her humanity is. Kendra's rigid and emotionless approach to slaying contrasted Buffy's ability to find strength in her emotions, and is why Kendra was not able to break Drusilla's thrall. On the opposite side, Faith's approach to being the Chosen One was much more primal and animalistic, selfishly using her power to indulge her physical desires. Claiming superiority due to being a Slayer, Faith twisted her sacrificial calling into something self-serving. Her carefree and instinctual take on slaying appealed to Buffy's own desires, seducing her with the possibility of freedom from responsibility. Faith used Buffy's internal struggle with the temptation of unrestrained power to justify her own selfish choices.
Want. Take. Have.
Ultimately, her impulsivity and lack of restraint led to Buffy overpowering and nearly killing her. While Buffy rejects Faith's idea of an unchecked and irresponsible Slayer, Season 3 revealed a more primal side to the Slayer and left us wondering whether this will affect Buffy.
Shine, people. It's your wake-up call.
Season 4 shelved this idea until the very end of the season, choosing to explore embracing one's identity and nature while rejecting institutional conformity. We saw Buffy once again trying to find a way to have a normal life through her relationship with Riley and the Initiative, yet failing as her sense of self conflicted with who they wanted her to be. Both the Initiative and the First Slayer demanded that she be a voiceless, nameless, and unquestioning weapon, with no individuality or autonomy. While Restless showed Buffy asserting her identity, independent from her heritage and the patriarchy that controls it, the show again addresses the animalistic nature of the Slayer, strongly hinting through comparisons to Adam in the First Slayer that her essence might be darker than she previously thought.
We're not demons.
Is that a fact?
In Buffy vs. Dracula, we see Buffy at her peak in both normal life and as a Slayer, yet something is different. Instead of reluctantly accepting her calling and all that it entails, she is shown to crave slaying, actively seeking it out. No longer patrolling, Buffy's hunting down of vampires resembles Faith in her zest for slaying, and her eagerness to get back to it shows that a normal life is no longer enough for her. Based loosely off Bram Stoker's Dracula, a huge theme of the book was the idea of female sexual purity, with the fear that a woman becomes sexually provocative and unclean after she is bitten.
She is the devil's concubine!
Female sexual expression is seen as evil and a threat, with Dracula pursuing the innocent Mina to seduce and turn her. Dracula's enthralling of Buffy mirrors Bram's Dracula, as he attempted to enthrall and seduce Mina. His insistence that Buffy is kindred confuses and scares her, as she begins to fear that what draws her to the Dark Prince is her Slayer nature.
I have searched the world over for you. I have yearned for you.
For a creature whose darkness rivals my own.
For several seasons, Buffy has fought against the idea of the Slayer being a killer, separating herself from the demons she destroys. Yet a part of her can't deny that killing is an attribute of the Slayer. To slay is to kill. Like the Master, Dracula's thrall over Buffy is because of her fear. While in the past she worried about slaying's interference with her human life, what Faith introduced and what Restless hinted at is that Buffy's nature as a Slayer might not just interfere with her human life, it might intrinsically change her humanity. What if the thing that makes her the Slayer is darker than the evil she has been chosen to destroy?
Okay, killer. If that's the way you want it. I guess you're on your own.
In existentialism, free will means we get to define who we are, even if we don't fully understand ourselves. Know thyself is as simple as not being confined to our past, but instead choosing who we will become in our future. It's deciding to not be paralyzed by indecision, fear of the unknown, or other people's expectations of us, but to keep moving forward. In the Buffyverse, blood is synonymous with power, often through identity, and vampirism is the perfect example of this. To become a vampire requires the human to have a complete loss of identity as their body, soul, and mind are taken over and lost to the impulses of the creature now inside them. Being both immortal and completely driven by animalistic tendencies, vampires are defined by their static and meaningless lives, the opposite of adolescence.
Call me. I will.
Dracula's insistence that Buffy taste him and understand what it is that vampires fight for shows not only his limited understanding of existence, but of who Buffy is. Drinking his blood reveals her true nature, one that will not be seduced by power, ruled by selfish impulses, or defined by others. In a subversion of Bram Stoker's original text, Buffy is shown to not be the helpless Mina, but Van Helsing, the vampire hunter who slays him.
How do you like my darkness now?
In the end, Buffy approaches Giles, fearing that her power is changing her into something dark, and asking for his help in learning to control it.
But I'm scared. I know it's gonna be hard. And I can't do it without you. I need your help. I need you to be my watcher again.
But perhaps it isn't control she needs. Perhaps
What are you doing here?
it's a connection to her humanity.